What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he so often does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, we're here for a North Carolina basketball podcast, a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We're here today to talk about sophomore forward Armando Bacot, who I don't know if we've talked about it on camera a ton. I think we've mentioned him in a couple of our Three Things video. But I know we've talked a lot off camera about just how good, just how efficient, and just how improved Armando Bacot has been from his freshman season to his sophomore season, well, 16 games in to his sophomore season right now. AJ, I'm going to run through a couple of stats before we dive in, and then we'll get going on it. On the year right now, averaging 23.5 minutes per game. I believe that's only fifth in minutes on the team, 12.6 points, 7.8 rebounds, and one of the most impressive stats, 65% shooting from the floor, and he leads the team in points and rebounds with those. So, AJ, overall, I think I tweeted it during the NC State game, and I think I told you about it. I said, man, I'm the conductor of the Armando Bacot train, man, and there's limited seating available. I think some people are starting to hop on because he's been so efficient this year, but he's also been a guy that up until really recently hasn't really been talked about a lot. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to hop on a podcast and kind of just isolate him and talk about the season he's having. AJ, in your opinion, we obviously covered him last year to now. What do you think has changed the most in Armando Bacot's game and allowed him to be, so much of an improved player and so much of an efficient player for the Tar Heels so far this year?
Well, before I answer that, I'm dating myself here, but if anybody's seen the movie The Jerk, Steve Martin has that train engineer hat on.
I even know what you're talking about.
Train thing. When you said that, the first thing I thought of, we need to get Jacob one of those hats with an Armando Bacot logo on. By the way, if you're in Tallahassee, the PA guy there calls him Bacot.
Bacot. I haven't heard that one. I've heard Bacot. I've heard a lot of different ones, but I haven't heard Bacot.
Well, when we were covering his recruitment, everyone was widely believed that it was Bacot back then.
Yeah, and then it got switched, yeah.
Well, I'm sure he's always had it as Bacot. But anyhow, the thing that's been most impressive about him is, other than a couple of games before this 3-game stretch right now, he's been very consistent.
Yes.
And I would say he's been the most consistent guy on the team. He's been productive, consistently productive. You really can't point to games and say, boy, Armando was horrible that night. And other guys have had really, really bad games this year, but Armando has kind of avoided that. He's had a couple of games where he wasn't that productive. Maybe could have been a lot better, 1 or 2 games, but not horrible. But what we're seeing right now is exactly what we talked about last spring. We did a video standing out in front of the Dean Dome as the pandemic was kind of unfolding, and we talked about Armando, and what did we say? We both said, well, let's see how much he improves and how much he matures. And it wasn't a knock on him. It's just a natural part of everybody growing up. When I was 19, I'm glad people that weren't looking at me and saying, gee, AJ needs to mature, because that would have been the number one storyline, and it would have carried into my 30s. 40s. So, but to Armando's credit, by everything that I have learned, he has matured a great deal. He got accepted in the Keenan Flagler Business School.
Big accomplishment.
If you watch his videos talking with us, he's just a different guy. You can see the evolution of him becoming a man. Mm-hmm. And part of that process it transcends itself to the court. He is far more efficient at what he does now than a year ago. We've talked a lot in some of our videos. We did it when I was in Pittsburgh the other night. Mm-hmm. There used to be a herky-jerkiness to what he did on the block. He used to get all contorted going up. He didn't play through contact as much. And as a result, he didn't convert as much around the rim. He had those 3 for 11 games, 1 for 14, I think, against Wofford last year. And it wasn't like Wofford had great size. He just didn't play through contact that well. Now, not only is he playing through contact, but he is the enforcer when it comes to contact. He's the one that controls the movement around the basket. And it begins with getting himself available, getting open, sealing his guy, getting him on his hips, making himself available for the entry, and then being very decisive on what he does. And I'm telling you, when Armando gets a college player on his hip, it's lights out.
Yep.
It's just a matter of him converting the shot, and he can do it with either hand. His jump hook is improved. The way he uses the glass, he squares. I mean, honestly, if you're going to create a video and show it to campers on how to do a lot of this stuff, I would say 85% of the time what Armando does is what you would show campers on how to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a joy to watch. I told you 1,000 times before, Jacob, the reason I enjoy covering college more than pros, because I like watching guys like Armando come in.
For sure.
Kids, and then they grow and develop, not just as players, but as people. Mm-hmm. But you can correlate the guy growth with the player growth.
Oh, yeah.
And with Armando, that's clearly been the case. And I cannot wait till we finally get an opportunity to be around these guys like in pre-pandemic times, because I think we would see that as well there. It's been a joy to watch. He's going to get better and better, and he's playing more. Those minutes you referenced are up. He's played 59 minutes in the last 2 games, 28 and 31 minutes. And prior to that stretch, he played 28 against UK, and he was really good with 14 and 8. Mm-hmm. And he played 27 against Central, and they needed him to because they had to hold off Central. Mm-hmm. So I think more Armando means it's better for Carolina.
Agreed. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that's impressed me from what he did last year to so far this year has been his efficiency around the rim. 65% shooting from the floor so far. You look at last year's stats: 24.4 minutes per, 9.6 points, 8.3 rebounds, 46.9% shooting from the floor. So his shooting percentage so far, and obviously there's a lot more sample size in what Carolina did last year in 33 games, only 16 games in so far. But as of right now, I mean, his shooting percentage has gone up 18%, which is really impressive.
The last 3 games, he's 24 for 32. He's at 75%.
75, it's unbelievable, yeah.
He's 8 for 14 from the free throw line, so you got to pick that up a little bit. And by the way, one of those misses was a 3 as the shot clock was about to expire at Pittsburgh. Yeah. And you could hear that thing clank off the backboard. So inside the arc, he's 24 for 31 during this stretch. Those are his normal shots. 18.7 points a game. He's averaging 8 rebounds. And guess what? How about 6 assists during the stretch? He only had a few assists through the first 8 games. He's had 6 in the last 3. He's got 4 blocks, 4 steals. His defense against Pitt was really solid. He had 3 blocks, but it wasn't just the block. He's affected so much. The only time Pitt really scored in the lane was when they had a breakdown and there wasn't help side there, and that wasn't always Armando's fault. I mean, it just – Pitt's got good players. Good players are going to score baskets every once in a while. So there's everything in his game is really starting to come around. The assists are big because we kind of knew all along that Garrison was a good passing big, and we were told that Dayron was not just a good passing big, but a very willing one. And we've seen that early. Passing wasn't really attached to Armando that much, and it's still not 100%. He's still going to have to do more of that. But 6 assists in the last 3 games where he's scoring at a high clip is a really good sign for Armando and for this team.
You talked about those last 3 games. I'm going to run through the stats for those last 3 games. 27 minutes per, 18.6 points per game. Like AJ mentioned earlier, 75% shooting from the floor, 8 boards and 2 assists, like AJ just mentioned as well. You've been at all those. Obviously, you were at the Pittsburgh game. I was at one of them. But what, over the last 3 games in particular, have you noticed anything changing in Armando Bacot's game? Does he look more, or is it just, what do you attribute the success recently to?
No athlete's going to say, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to thousands of athletes, okay? And none of them have ever said, I just can't do that right now.
Yeah, no, that isn't, you don't hear that very often.
But there's a time when you really believe a guy that he believes what he's saying. And a lot of times, and it's not that they're lying or that they're dumb or they don't understand their game or anything like that. A lot of them want to believe it. And they think, okay, I'm good. I belong here. The next time I step on the floor, that's the time I'm going to show it. What Armando, when he talks about his game now, he's talking about it from I've already done it perspective now. He sees what he's done. He recognizes that, man, when I seal a guy and I turn and I'm not wasting dribbles and I got him on my hip, I'm scoring. You can see it. You can see it in how he carries himself. That's one of the reasons the moves are decisive. Guys that don't make decisive moves, it's because they're not real confident yet. They're not confident in their strength to play through something like a year ago, even though he was strong. it was part of his adjustment to the college game. Guys that don't drive the lane and dribble forever on the perimeter and they're looking around, they don't know what to do. They're not confident in a lot of stuff. So they're not trying to do a lot of stuff. There was a game I was watching not too long ago, other teams playing, and they said the coach wants one of his guys to actually drive into the lane early in a game, kind of force a shot, have a bad pass or a charge or something like that, because it shows that his mind is telling him, I can do that tonight.
Yeah.
They'll put up with some stuff every once in a while because they want to see that assertiveness. Well, Armando, there is no indecision anymore because he believes every time he gets the ball, he's going to score. So to me, that's been the thing that has been more evident these last 3 games than it was prior. And he had decent amount of confidence. One of the things we talked about early was, hey, Armando's really efficient with what he's doing. Those couple of games before this 3-game stretch, it looked like he was got a little bit herky-jerky stuff, maybe wasn't as fluid as what we've seen the last 3 games. But that's just part of the process, man. When we talk about process of football all the time, each basketball player has a process too. And that was part of Armando's process. So it's being reinforced right now when he watches himself on film. This is how you're supposed to do it. And he's doing it really, really well.
Agreed. AJ, last thing I kind of want to touch on before we wrap this thing up, we've kind of talked about this off camera. We mentioned it for a second here, but I kind of want to expand on it a little bit. You talked about his press conferences recently. I think we've talked about off camera how leadership wise and just confidence in what he's saying in this press conferences is so much different than what he was saying last year. He seems so much more sure of himself in front of the media. He kind of seems to say all the right things, almost like I said, he seems to be kind of developing into somewhat of a leader on this team, despite just being a true sophomore. Can you kind of touch on that? And then as a kind of a caveat of that, where do you think his game can still improve? Because obviously he's still so young.
The first part, a leader has to understand everything that's going on the floor. It doesn't always have to be a guy that does everything well, but they have to understand everything because you have to know where to lead, how to lead, where are those moments where you slip in and do the fanny slap or you talk to a guy or what you say to the media. A leader kind of can be a face of a program with the media, and you have to kind of speak for the team.
Yeah.
We didn't play well tonight because, well, you have to know what all the becauses are. We can be better because, well, you have to know, again, what the becauses are. I think when Armando talks about the team and parts of their game, he's filling in a lot of cracks that he didn't fill in a year ago. And most freshmen don't. They're just so uber focused on what they got to do and got to get more minutes. And I don't want the coach yelling at me. And they feel like thousands of people are looking over their shoulder, kind of like what you do in a new job. Anybody starts a new job, you think everyone's watching you, right? Well, young players in college athletics, especially basketball, because you're so isolated out there in many respects, you can be seen because there's only 5 guys on each side, that they kind of feel like that too. Armando's way past that now. I think the other night, for example, he was asked about, how they are better, if it feels different than last year and what is different. And he didn't just focus on the interior. He talked about the guards, and he talked about defense, and he talked about passing, and he talked about movement. He's speaking about the game as a whole. So to become a leader, you have to be able to recognize all those things to be an appropriate and an effective leader. I don't think he's the leader of this team right now, but I think he's a voice that's heard, and he's a voice that's respected. And I think right now there's probably a few voices in that room. We learned last week that after halftime against Wake Forest, when they were struggling, and Roy kept them in the locker room for almost the entire halftime clock.
I didn't think they were coming out.
Well, Garrison had a word in the tunnel. And that's what Garrison can provide because he knows all the things that Armando's still learning about the team. As far as your other question about where he can get better, well, he just has to continue doing what he's doing. 3 games at 18.7 points and 8 rebounds and shooting 75% from the field. Just like the basketball team, we said that they haven't arrived yet, and Roy said they haven't turned the corner yet because they have to do this more often. Well, Armando has to continue to do this.
Yeah.
Really, really good college players do it every night. They don't do it for 3-game stretches. So where does he get better? He's got to get better at being really good. He's got to be really good for a 4th game, for a 5th game, a 6th game, and that kind of thing. He does have to shoot free throws better. And really, I just want to see him do this for a while, and then we'll really have a good idea at what parts of his game need to be shored up. I think defensively he can be better, obviously. But let's just see him get consistent in where he is now. That's the next part of this process. There's still plenty of room to grow. Down the road, he'll extend his game further from the basket. That brick three the other night as the shot clock was expiring, that might be a prettier shot this time next year. But as far as the next 2 months, he's just got to be consistent. And if he's getting 28 and 31 minutes a game, he's going to have to score at a similar clip in order for Carolina to be as good as they can be. Because if Armando's not giving him those numbers, then they won't be as good as they can be.
Yeah, agreed. Like I said, guys, I'm on the Armando Bacot train, and it's filling up slowly and steadily. I think.
Steve Martin hat.
Yeah, I need it, man. Next time I come on and do a Armando Bacot, next time Armando Bacot has a big game, I'll come on here with a train conductor hat and a whistle. Can you imagine, man, a little big Armando Bacot image on the hat too? That'd be classic.
By the time that we finish recording this podcast, that joke will have run its course.
Yeah, exactly. That one has a very, very small shelf life, to say the least. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, Armando Bacot just having a really efficient year so far. Coming on in the last 3 games in particular, as Carolina really gets into this daunting 7-game stretch, if you will, which me and AJ talked about on a podcast last week. I think him continuing to do what he's done in the past 3 games is really going to help this team forward. Yeah, absolutely, AJ. But as always, guys, if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe to our channel, be sure to share it with your friends, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.